The Dallas Mavericks are only a few days removed from the NBA Finals, but that doesn't mean they're not hard at work. And on this channel, we've reported a few times that Bronny James is a player whose name keeps getting popped up in relation to the Dallas Mavericks as the NBA draft is just a few weeks away. And today we got new reports that maybe Bronny might just fall to the Dallas Mavericks. And I know a lot of you fans out there just don't want to hear Bronny James because you're worried about LeBron James coming with him. But we do have other reports saying that Bronny may not be a package deal with LeBron James and that he's fine exactly where he is. So in this video, we're going to break down all those reports and see why we should draft Bronny James and what we could do with him, whether we keep him or we flip him. But how's it going, everybody? My name is Marcel Martin. This is Mavs Digest, bringing you everything Mavericks related. And before we get started with today's video, only 8.1% of you guys have the bell turned on. I'm trying to do a little bit of experiment here. I want to see if we can get more people to turn that notification on, help grow the channel. We're on the road to 15K. I'm at about 10.6 right now. But if you want to stay up to date on everything Mavericks related, make sure you hit that bell. It might be the off season, but it's not my off season. But like I said in the intro, Bronny James is a player whose name keeps getting brought up. And you would think someone who is the son of LeBron James, someone whose name keeps getting brought up in the media, that they're probably going to be a lottery pick player. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. They've constantly said that this draft is a very weak draft. They're talking about Zach Edey, they're talking about Klingon, they're talking about Alexander Sarr, and a couple other rookies as well that will most likely go in the lottery, whereas Bronny James, until recently, was seen as a player that may need to go back to college. Scouts really didn't think that highly of him. They weren't really that impressed. And then things started to shift that, well, if you get Bronny James, maybe you'll get LeBron James. And there's a lot of teams in the league that are pretty desperate, that are ran fairly poorly, that would definitely go and get Bronny James with the hopes that you also get LeBron James. And then today, we do have some news, we do have some reports that conflict that. The Dallas Mavericks, Raptors, and Timberwolves have all expressed interest in potentially drafting Bronny James. There are other teams that love Bronny. For example, Minnesota, Dallas, and Toronto. Minnesota will love to get Bronny in, but I don't know who their owner is going to be. And as you know, Minnesota has a big issue with Alex Rodriguez and his ownership group and the previous owners. Who knows who actually owns the Minnesota Timberwolves? I might be the owner of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Who knows, right? But the Mavs GM, Nico Harrison, is like an uncle to Bronny. If the Lakers don't take him at 55, Dallas would take him at 58 and give him a guaranteed deal. Masai Ujiri, the Raptors president, loves him. They could take him without even seeing him at 31. Workouts aren't everything for these teams. And the reason that little last line there, workouts aren't everything for these teams, is because Bronny James has apparently only worked out with two teams. And that's the Los Angeles Lakers, most likely because of his father, but also the Phoenix Suns. And if you've been keeping up with the Phoenix Suns, they're very desperate. The new owner came in, already fired two coaches, already made big trades for Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. They flamed out in the first round. They're desperate to do anything while they have less draft capital than we do. However, if we look at this report right here, the Toronto Raptors are a team that's going through a big rebuild right now. They got rid of Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. They brought in a bunch of young guys, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley. And it would come to reason that, yeah, you would probably want someone like Bronny James. Like I said in the intro, this is a fairly weak draft class. And honestly, Bronny James is the only player that's getting a lot of talk for someone that's not going to be a lottery player. So a team like the Toronto Raptors, who has been infamously known as LeBronto, might want to get Bronny just for the memes, just to have him on the team, but also as a young player that they believe has a potential to become a much better player in the league than he is right now. And like I said, with Minnesota, they don't even know who the owner is, so they've got their own money problems with Karl Anthony Towns on a big contract, Rudy Gobert on a very bad contract, and then you're going to have to pay a lot of these young guys, including Anthony Edwards. And then there's us, the Dallas Mavericks, and what's very interesting is that Nico Harrison is seen as an uncle to Bronny. And as we all know, Nico Harrison has worked with Nike for years, and he has a lot of good relationships in the league. And to have that type of relationship with Bronny and his whole family, that could work in our favor. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking it's the 58th pick. Why do we care who we're drafting at the end of the draft? I think we want to look at it a different way. A player that's being talked about that's going to go potentially last in the draft, if he does fall to us, might actually yield pretty good results. I mean, Isaiah Thomas for the Boston Celtics, he was drafted with the very last pick, and he had a pretty good career until it wasn't good, but he still had a pretty good career for all things considering. But Bronny James, does he fit our timeline? Not really. I mean, he's not that highly touted of a player out of college. Again, he's going at the end of the draft if he does fall to us. We're in a win-now mode as we just traded for Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington. We're trying to get back to the finals. Does Bronny James help us get there? And the answer is no. We already got a lot of young guys like Omax, who everyone is excited to see his just development in that leap that he makes. Derrick Lively looking like prime Tyson Chandler in his rookie year, about to be his sophomore year. Jaden Hardy and Josh Green, two young guys that are going to continue to improve. So we've got young guys. Why do we want Bronny James? And the only thing that I can really come up with is a trade bait, right? That last pick may not be as valuable as the player you select with it. If we do select Bronny James, we can do one of two things with it. We either stash him in the G League, see how he pans out, and maybe down the road we either call him up or we can trade him if he does get better and he grows his own trade value. Or without even keeping him on the team, the reports did say that Nico Harrison would sign him to a guaranteed deal. However, if we do draft Bronny James, that could be a much better package if you put in a Maxi Kleber, if you put in a Josh Green, a Tim Hardaway, any of these players that we do need to ship off from this team to get better pieces. Bronny James might be just the icing on the cake. And again, he's not that highly touted of a player. He's not even one of the top college players in this draft. I get that. But there are a lot of desperate teams. I'm thinking the Detroit Pistons. I'm thinking the Washington Wizards, the Phoenix Suns. Like, there are a lot of teams that are very desperate right now to at least do something within their organization. And there are a lot of teams that truly believe if I get Bronny James, I could get LeBron James. So I feel like it's a win-win. And we reported in the video just yesterday that Nico Harrison has full control of this team. They gave him the reins to do whatever he wants. And if he has these type of connections with the James family, I truly believe that if Bronny James does fall to the very end of the draft, we're definitely going to select him, because I don't think of it. I don't see anybody else being talked about at the end of the draft, let alone the second round, that's as highly talked about as Bronny James. We all know nepotism. His father's LeBron. We get that. But there is some tricky things that we can do if we do draft Bronny. I mean, we've seen Nico go and get Dante Exum out of Europe when he hasn't been in the league for years. We saw him go get Derrick Jones Jr. on a very team-friendly contract who panned out great for us. Who knows? Maybe Bronny does just become a player that we can use right now. We don't know. But I don't think there's a better player at the 58th pick that this team could draft for. But to continue with these reports, LeBron James, for those that may not want Bronny because you're worried about LeBron James coming, here's your saving grace. LeBron James is off the idea of playing with Bronny, Rich Paul tells ESPN, saying if he does, he does. But there's no deal that if LA drafts Bronny at 55, LeBron James will re-sign. If that was the case, I'd force LA to take him at 17. The Lakers can draft Bronny, and LeBron may not re-sign. LeBron is also not going to Phoenix for the minimum. Let's squash that right now. I think the last part of that quote is the most important part, is that Phoenix don't draft Bronny, because you're not getting LeBron. He's not going over there for the minimum. You guys got money problems, and he's not trying to be a part of those problems as well. But for those that maybe you don't want Bronny because you're worried about LeBron James coming, there you go. I mean, take it at face value. Take it with a grain of salt, because anything can happen between now and the draft. But if we get Bronny, we don't have to worry about LeBron. Again, a lot of teams are desperate, but I also see the opposite, where some teams may want to avoid Bronny. They're at the 58th pick, there's 57 other picks where LeBron James Jr. can go to before us. But some teams may be turned off on the idea of Bronny James because they're worried about too much media attention. Some teams may want the media attention, but some teams may feel like, well, if I get Bronny, I have to play him. I have to give him a good contract. I can't put him in the G League because LeBron James is dead, and I'm not trying to hear that. Some teams may be turned off by that and may not want those type of problems. And again, Nico Harrison, who has good relationships with the James family, may not have to worry about that at all. And if we do put him in the G League, I'm sure Nico will talk to LeBron James like, hey, I know what I'm doing. We cool. And that just helps the team out even further. But let's go even further with that, right? News. Rich Paul confirms Bronny James has worked out just 2 NBA teams to this point, the Phoenix Suns and LA Lakers. It says that is by design. And on top of that, Rich Paul says in addition to the Lakers and Suns, there are 3 other teams showing interest in Bronny James. Minnesota at 37, but I don't know who their owner will be. Dallas at 58, Nico Harrison's like an uncle to Bronny. And Toronto at 31, Masai loves Bronny. So that just reinforces it that LeBron is not following Bronny James no matter where he goes. Bronny has only worked out with 2 teams. The Lakers, because obviously that's where his father's at. It's very easy. And the Phoenix Suns, where if you want to take him, Phoenix, go right ahead, but you're going to get just him. You're not getting LeBron. And again, Minnesota, who are your owners? You don't even know who's in charge right now. Toronto, they're going through a big rebuild right now, and they just need young players, young talent. They had the potential to have like 5 first-round picks. Unfortunately, they had to give some of those picks back to San Antonio and other teams. So they're kind of desperate as well at this point to try and get young talent. And then there's us. We just made the finals. We're a really good, solid built team. We're not in a rush to make big changes. But if Bronny James falls at 58, why not? Who else are we going to select, right? And here's the last thing that we're going to go over for all those people that are just down on Bronny James. And here's a little something to just validate how you may feel. This is some scouting reports back in May on Bronny James. One scout said that he's a positional athlete, doesn't function as an elite athlete. Should be a point guard based on his size, but he can't run an offense. Handicapped as a shooting guard because he can't shoot. 0 of 4 on threes one day, 1 in 3 the other day. Needs screens to create space, and his only scoring came on point touch floaters. He can only go left. His strength is supposed to be defensively, but he's a switch matchup. Every bigger player that switched onto him scored. His comp, a poor man's Davion Mitchell. He is not an NBA prospect. Where another scout said, if the Lakers don't draft him, I don't think anyone will draft him. Teams would want him on a two-way, and I don't think Clutch would want that. Now, that was back in May. Things have obviously changed. If we do draft Bronny, we do have the information that he's getting a guaranteed deal. There's no two-way deal. However, a guaranteed deal doesn't mean you're not going to the G League. Most likely, you're going to go down there. Jaden Hardy might not have to spend time in the G League. We may have to actually see more of Omax and Jaden Hardy, but Bronny James definitely would have spent some time in the G League. Or, like I said earlier, maybe we draft Bronny, package him up with a Tim Hardaway Jr. or a Maxi Kleber or a Dwight Powell or maybe even Josh Green. And I love the Josh Hustle Man Green. Y'all know I love the Hustle Man. But we've got a lot of young talent. We do have pieces. We may not have the draft capital to make the right trades, but we do have pieces and assets that we can move around. And I believe that Bronny James is way more valuable than just giving another team the 55th pick, where Bronny James may not even go to the 55th pick. But if we can guarantee that we can get him, then we got something to work with. Then we got some trade value. I don't know what Portland's doing, but they're pretty desperate too. They got Scoot Henderson last year that didn't really do much this year. Here's Bronny James. I'd love to get Matisse Thybulle on this team. The defense would be great. But that's all I got for you guys today. Make sure you comment, subscribe, like, do all that stuff. Check out our Twitter and Discord. Links in the description below. We are doing another channel giveaway on this channel, probably next month, the first week of July. We'll announce the winners, and the only way to enter in those giveaways is to become a channel member. But that's all I got. It's the off season, but it's not my off season, right? We got more videos coming. You don't want to miss out a single thing we do. And as always, drink water. Peace.